Effie, and this is What Effie Reads. I recently did a bookish stats video where I took a good look at my shelves, and in that video I mentioned that I had 99 books that I was willing to prioritise out of the something stupid like 400 plus unread books I actually own. And also in that video I challenged myself to read all of those priority books by the end of 2022. So I thought it would be interesting if I actually went through and told you what those books were. This list is by no means all of the books that I will prioritise over the next 18 months, as there will be new releases that I'll be very excited about, and even since I first made this list I've purchased some books that I'm incredibly excited to read. But these are all the books that I wish to read before the end of 2022. I just thought it'd be fun to catalogue them in a way that I can then look back in December 2022 and see what I've actually managed to read out of this list. Because there are 90 books on this list, I will try not to talk too much about each book. I will try and give the title and the author of each book, and I will list them all in the description. So if you're interested in finding out a little bit more about any of these books, hopefully that'll be enough information for you to find out for yourselves. Apologies about the change of lighting. I also want to say that please feel free to watch this video on 2x speed, and as I always say, if any of these authors are problematic or you've got anything you think I should know about the authors or even the books themselves, like, try not to spoil it unless like absolutely necessary for me. But yeah, if you think I should know anything about the authors or the books themselves, please do let me know in the comments down below. But conversely, if any of these books on this list you think I should like prioritise more than just I want to read them all by the end of 2022, please let me know, because this is still quite a number of books, so any insight is very much welcome. So first up we've got a fairly new release, and it's The Poison Heart by Kalynn Bayron. Another new release is One Last Stop by Casey McQuiston. I've also got These Violent Delights by Chloe Gong. I'm really hoping I enjoy this one because I've pre-ordered the Fairy Loot edition of the sequel, so fingers crossed I actually like this book. Then we've got The Trick to Time by Kit Waal. This was a book featured in Spoops' recommended literary fiction video, and I tend to trust Spoops' opinion, so I'm very excited to read this book. And then we've got Adjustment Day by Chuck Palahniuk, Grotesque by Natsuo Kirino. This is a book that I've previously tried to read and didn't have much joy, so I think it's going to be one of these that I'm going to prioritise but potentially will end up being a DNF and unhaul, but I hope not. And then we've got the first of the non-fiction. We've got Just Ignore Him by Davies. This is quite a difficult book and it's not a format I usually enjoy. It's written in essays, but I think it's probably an important book to read. So I'm hoping to actually finish it at some point. I got 100, I don't know if you can see the bookmark, it's about there. I got about 100 pages in and then I wasn't in quite the right frame of mind to read it. And then we have The Baby Is Mine by Oyinkan Braithwaite. This is a really short book. It's one of the quick reads books, and I picked it up because I loved My Sister's Serial Killer, and also it's only 99p to pick up a copy in the UK, so I figured why not. Then we've got The Ones We're Meant to Find by Joan He, and Master of One by Jada Jones and Danny Bennett. Next we've got Hamlet by Maggie O'Farrell, and as you can see I've got the gorgeous Waterstones Book of the Year edition, so I'm really hoping that I like this book. And we've got The Nightingales Are Drunk by Hafez. I'm expecting this to be quite a quick read as it is so short. Moominland Midwinter by Tove Jansson. Ghostkin by Ellen Mellor. I'm really intrigued by this one. I picked it up in Travelling Man in New York. Not New York, I've never been to New York. In Newcastle, and I believe it's an indie pub book. And then we have Spellslinger by Sebastian de Castell, and I managed to get the Sprayed Edges edition, so hopefully I like this. I also have, I want to say book 4. I'm slowly but surely purchasing the Sprayed Edge editions of these books. And another non-fiction, we have Perfect Sound Whatever by James Acaster. I'm hoping that his comedy translates to the written word. It does sound like a really interesting concept for a book, so fingers crossed. And we've got a middle grade, Knights and Bikes by Gabriel Kent. Oh, that's cute. I've just noticed on the back it has that, which I don't know if that's going to focus, but it says kids and grown-ups, which I think is a really good thing to pop on a middle grade, because some people still stigmatise adults for reading middle grade. And then we've got Exciting Times by Nisha Dolan. I've heard very mixed things about this, but I'm intrigued to read it, that's for sure. And then we've got The Other Boy by M.G. Hennessy. And this one is a weird one because it is sitting in my unhaul pile, but is a book that I want to read. And it's 6-4 by Hideo Yokoyama. The reason I wish to unhaul this is it's a ex-library copy, which I don't have a problem with ex-library copies, except when this arrived, it is an ex-prison library copy and it's from a particularly unsavoury prison. So it's not a book I particularly want to keep on my shelves, although I'm kind of gutted because it's the hardback edition and I do generally prefer hardbacks, although I also have a soft spot for a floppy paperback. The next book we've got is once again a non-fiction, and it's In Black and White by Alexandra Wilson. Then we've got Ramesa by Radia Hafeiza. Three Dark Crowns by Kendra Blake. Rainbow Grey by Laura Ellen Anderson. Tomi by Junji Ito. Mad, Bad and Dangerous to Know by Samira Ahmed. Way of the Argosy by Sebastian de Castell. Her Body and Other Parties by Carmen Maria Machado. In the Dream House by Carmen Maria Machado. Let's just take a minute. How beautiful these two books look together. I love how well they complement one another. And then an author that's quickly becoming one of my favourite authors, Survivor Song by Paul Tremblay. And then I think the next pile of books is predominantly graphic novels, which is great. So we've got The Steel Prince, The Rebel Army, and The Steel Prince, Knight of Knives, both by B. Schwab. A Universe of Wishes, edited by Donielle Clayton. Marble Cake by Scott Jason Smith. When Stars Are Scattered by Victoria Jameson and Omar Mohammed. The Heroes Omnibus. It doesn't actually have an author listed on this book, and I'm not sure if Titan Comics are indie, but this is a heavy book. And then we have volumes 1 to 3 of Death Note by, I actually don't know the author, Tsugumi Oba and Takeshi Obata. And A Girl on the Shore by Inio Asano. And we've got Oracle for Hire by Dominic Deacon. Sleepwalk and Other Stories by Adrian Tamine. Palestine by Joe Sacco. Panic by Jeff Abbott. This is a book I think I might have read before, but I can't remember. I have very vivid recollections of the start of it, and it's a book that the start of it came to me rather randomly. But I can't remember anything else about it, so I'm desperate to read it. We've got Sweet Pea by CJ Scoose. Children of Blood and Bone by Tommy Adeyemi. This edition is well and truly battered. I had a bit of an accident with a bath with this book, but I kind of love it all the more for it being so battered. And then we've got Take It Back by Kia Abdullah. I've previously read another one of Kia Abdullah's books, and it was so good. So I'm really excited to get into this and read more from this author. The Salmon of Doubt by Douglas Adams, which I have had for absolutely years, and I'll admit that the reason I haven't read it is I thought I needed to read like the rest of Adams's work. I have read all 5 all 5 books in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy series, and I believe I've read like the 2 Dirk Gently novels, but for some reason I thought I had to read them before I read this, and I think I would probably gain more from it if I was fresh in my head, but I also think this probably could stand on its own. It's cute. This was actually a gift, I think, for my 17th birthday. So it's got a really sweet inscription in. And then we've got another fairly new release, and it's Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. In the Ravenous Dark by A.M. Strickland. Then we've got House of Hollow by Crystal Sutherland. Slay, which I'm absolutely obsessed with, this like floppy ARC edition that I managed to get my hands on, by Brittany Morris. The Leaving by Tara Altebrando. Mother Loves Me by Abby Davies. I've heard this is an absolutely amazing thriller, so I'm really, really excited to read it. But also a bit nervous because it's been hyped so heavily to me, so it'd be a bit disappointing if I end up not loving it. We've got The Corrections by Jonathan Franzen. This is a really weird one. Like, I'm fairly sure I bought this book, left it in a supermarket, so I thought I'd lost my copy. And then it turned up years later. I have no idea what happened because I know I left it in a supermarket, so I don't know if I actually happened to have 2 copies of this book. But the other weird thing is it's got a bookmark in. I don't know. And then we've got 1000 Paper Cranes by Takayuki Ishii. I am fairly familiar with the story of the Thousand Paper Cranes, as I learned about it when I visited Manchester Museum, and I was so taken by the story that for the year before I got married, I actually made a point of making 1,000 paper cranes, and I still have some of them to this day. I've been married for over 5 years now, and I still have some of my paper cranes. I also have a paper crane tattooed there. And then we've got At Night All Blood is Black by David Diop. I believe this won the International Booker Prize this year, so I'm very interested to read it, even though it isn't normally something that appeals to me. And then we've got The Water Garden by Louise Soraya Black. I will admit this is a book that B picked up when we were in Waterstones, largely because of this really cool spine and cover. I do feel a bit like the blurb could go in a way that might be quite uncomfortable, but I am also very interested to read it. And then we've got Lucky Ghost by Matthew Blackstead, which I've talked about before. Essentially, I picked it up because it says it's perfect for fans of Black Mirror, but that also means that it's got quite a lot to live up to saying that. I've just realised that I meant to get down The Dark Lady, so that's another one on this list. Dark Lady by Akala. I believe it's set in Shakespearean England, and it sounds really intriguing. We've got Ruthless Women by Melanie Blake. This is a book that I picked up that kind of sounded like Unreal crossed with a thriller, which felt like a really interesting combination. We've got 13 by Steve Kavanagh. Orlando by Virginia Woolf. The Ocean at the End of the Lane by Neil Gaiman. This is a book that I feel like everyone speaks really, really highly about, and I'm not quite sure why I haven't gotten to it, but I hope I love it as much as everyone else. The Deathless Girls by Kieran Millwood Hargrave, and look at those beautiful sprayed edges. Amari and the Night Brothers by B.B. Alston. This is another one of those books that has been hyped up so much that I'm kind of scared to read it because it is so hyped up. But also, I think I probably will end up loving it. American Royals by Catherine McGee. 9 Perfect Strangers by Leanne Moriarty. Between the Lines by Jodie Picoult and Samantha Van Leer. I mean, honestly, I think it's just that beautiful coloured spine that makes me want to read that. You Should See Me in a Crown by Leah Johnson. I really, really want to read this. I don't know why I haven't picked it up actually. It was a birthday present either last year or the year before, so I really should read it, but for whatever reason, I haven't yet. Down to the last 20 books. Yay! On the Come Up by Andrew Thomas. I have read Concrete Rose and I've read The Hate You Give and loved both of them, so I'm really hoping that I love this one just as much. I know that it's quite a different story to Concrete Rose and The Hate You Give, but I've also heard really good things about this book. And I love that it's got these gorgeous like lilac sprayed edges, and it matches because my edition of Concrete Rose has like teal turquoise sprayed edges, and The Hate You Give has like bright yellow sprayed edges. Then we got The Grace Keepers by Kirsty Logan. This is another book that I have talked about before, but it's essentially a sapphic magical realism book, and I've read the companion novel to it and really enjoyed it and found it really heart-wrenching in places. Two Sisters, A Story of Freedom by Kirino. This is from the author of When Life Gives You Mangoes, which I absolutely adored, so I have really high hopes for this book. Witches Steeped in Gold by Shannon Smart. Skip Beat, volumes 1 to 3. This is a manga that one of my work colleagues recommended to me, so I'm hoping I love it. I also know that there's something like 46 volumes, so it's one that I'm going to have to slowly make my way through and gradually build up my collection of. If I Was Your Girl by Meredith Russo. This was another book that I received as a birthday present, and I think I received this as a birthday present 2 years ago, so definitely one that I need to kind of prioritise soon. Ace of Spades by Farida Adike Iyemiti. I've heard this is queer. I've heard that it's Gossip Girl meets Get Out, so really hoping to read it soon and absolutely love it. And I love that I've got the Illumicrate edition, which means it's in hardback. Never Look Back by Lilian Rivera. This is a Orpheus and Eurydice retelling, so I'm really interested to read this. Clara and the Sun by Kazuo Ishiguro. This has come highly recommended to me, so I'm hoping I love it, and again, quite nervous that I don't love it because it has come so highly recommended. Beloved by Toni Morrison. And then I've got a couple more non-fiction. Why You Should Read Children's Books Even Though You Are So Old and Wise by Catherine Rundell. Essays in Popular Science by Julian Huxley. This is largely, I want to read it with a critical lens because I suspect, well, I'm interested to see how much of the perspectives in science has or hasn't changed since this book was written. The Five by Haley Rubenhold. I've actually already read a book with a similar subject matter. I've read a book that talks about the 5 women and doesn't pay much attention to the man who murdered them. But everyone was raving about this one when it came out, so I'm hoping to love this and soon. War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy. I mean, I don't know how many times I need to say that I really need to read this. It was a book that I intended to read in 2020 and then didn't, so I've now put it on my list of books that I want to read in 2021. I think largely it looks really intimidating, but I don't think it's that much longer than this Brandy Sanderson, but I guess I'll see soon enough. Another Paul Tremblay book, we've got Growing Things and Other Stories. This is an anthology book, and the reason I haven't read it yet is pretty much because I want to read Tremblay's other books in this vein first, because I think I'll get more out of it. I know that at least the titular story relates quite closely to A Head Full of Ghosts. Invisible Monsters remix. So I have read Invisible Monsters, so I'm not sure what I'm going to make of this, especially because it has been some time since I did read Invisible Monsters, but I do remember loving it, so hopefully this one is just as good. A Very Large Expanse of Sea by Terry E. Maffey. Circus of Wonders by Elizabeth McNeil. Oh, this one. The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V. Schwab. This is one of those books that I feel like almost every video I talk about and go, I own 4 copies, somehow I've still not read it. I really need to read it urgently. But I'm hoping by putting this on this prioritizing list, it does give me that extra push to actually read it soon. And last but not least, we have The Guest Cat by Takashi Hirade. This is a book that B picked out for me. We went to Waterstones at some point and I asked him to just randomly pick a book for me. And this was the one he picked. I think it's really, really short, but what's been putting me off from picking it up is that I have a really horrible feeling that the cat dies. Like, that's just how the blurb makes it sound. So hopefully not, but I'm a little bit nervous. So that was all 90 books on my prioritizing list. Like, I will see you all tomorrow, but I will also check back at the end of December 2022 and see how many of the books on this list I have actually managed to read. And until next time, bye!